Nobody expected Dana Bonner's return to Indianapolis to be quiet. The moment she stepped onto the floor, the atmosphere felt different. Fans weren't just watching another regular season game. They were watching a reunion that had gone wrong, a former Fever player returning in a different uniform, carrying plenty of baggage with her. But by the end of the night, nobody was talking about Dana Bonner's return. They were talking about Caitlin Clark, and they were talking about one of the wildest games of the season. Because what started as a tense matchup quickly turned into a night filled with controversy, technical fouls, arguments, and one historic performance that completely flipped the story. The boos started long before tip-off. When Dana Bonner left Indiana, fans never really got closure. She arrived with expectations, played only a handful of games, and then requested a move elsewhere. Officially, it was described as a basketball fit issue, but Fever fans never seemed fully convinced. So when she returned to Gainbridge Fieldhouse wearing a Phoenix Mercury jersey, the crowd made its feelings known immediately. Every touch brought noise. Every possession brought another wave of reactions. And it wasn't long before the tension on the court started matching the tension in the stands. Early in the game, Bonner and Caitlin Clark kept finding themselves in the middle of the action together. There was contact. There was talking. There were moments where neither player seemed interested in backing down. At first, it looked like normal competitive basketball. Then it started feeling a little more personal. Meanwhile, Indiana couldn't buy a basket. The Fever offense looked completely out of rhythm. Shots that normally fell were missing. Passing lanes disappeared. The spacing looked off. Nothing seemed to work, and the numbers were shocking. By the end of the first quarter, Indiana had scored only 6 points. 6. For a franchise that entered the season with championship expectations, it was almost impossible to believe. Even Caitlin Clark couldn't get anything going. She missed shot after shot. The Mercury defense looked prepared for everything Indiana wanted to do. For a moment, it felt like Phoenix had completely figured them out. The crowd that entered the arena expecting fireworks suddenly looked stunned. And that's when the game started changing, because great players have a unique ability. They know exactly when panic starts spreading, and they know how to stop it. The second quarter belonged to Caitlin Clark. Suddenly, the hesitation disappeared. The missed shots didn't matter anymore. The frustration was gone. Clark started firing from deep, and when she hit the first one, you could feel the energy shift. The crowd woke up, her teammates woke up, the entire building woke up. Then another three-pointer dropped, and another. Every basket chipped away at Phoenix's confidence. What had looked like a comfortable Mercury lead suddenly became a game again. Indiana wasn't just scoring, they were attacking. The ball moved faster, the defense tightened, the crowd got louder with every possession, and at the center of it all was Clark. The same player who had been scoreless in the opening quarter suddenly looked unstoppable. Phoenix spent the first 12 minutes controlling everything. Then Clark spent the next 12 reminding everyone why she's one of the most talked about players in basketball. By halftime, the game had completely flipped. The Mercury no longer looked comfortable. Indiana no longer looked nervous, and the real drama hadn't even started yet. The second half brought something entirely different: physicality. The kind of physical game that makes every possession feel like an argument. Every drive to the basket came with contact. Every rebound became a battle. Every whistle triggered reactions from both benches. Then came the moment that changed the mood inside the arena. A collision involving Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark immediately grabbed everyone's attention. Officials reviewed the play. Fans waited. Players waited. Everyone expected one outcome. Instead, the decision sparked outrage throughout the building. The crowd erupted. Boos poured down from every direction. Social media exploded almost instantly, and Clark's frustration became impossible to miss. You could see it on her face. The Fever bench felt it too. The Mercury bench felt it. Everyone knew emotions were reaching a dangerous level, and then things escalated. Players started exchanging words. Officials rushed in. Coaches stepped closer. The game suddenly felt like it was hanging by a thread. This wasn't just basketball anymore. It had become a battle of emotions. And standing right in the middle of that storm was Sophie Cunningham. If you've watched Sophie Cunningham throughout her career, you know one thing: she doesn't back down. Not from But the most interesting part of the entire night happened after the emotions cooled down. Because once fans stopped talking about the technical fouls and the arguments, a bigger question started making its way across social media. Did Phoenix accidentally create the version of Caitlin Clark they were trying to avoid? Think about it. For most of the first quarter, the Mercury looked completely comfortable. Their defensive strategy was working. Indiana couldn't score. Clark looked frustrated. The crowd was nervous. Everything seemed to be unfolding exactly the way Phoenix wanted. Then the game got personal. The extra physicality, the constant jawing, the controversial whistles. Every little moment seemed to add fuel to Clark's fire, and that's the dangerous part. Throughout her basketball career, Clark has shown a pattern. The more people doubt her, the better she tends to play. The more pressure she faces, the more aggressive she becomes. And the more chaotic the environment gets, the more focused she appears. Fans have watched it happen for years. They watched it happen in college. They've watched it happen in the WNBA. And on this night, it happened again. By the middle of the second quarter, the player who couldn't buy a basket in the opening minutes looked completely different. Her confidence returned. Her shot selection became fearless. And perhaps most importantly, Phoenix suddenly had to guard her everywhere. Not just beyond the three-point line, not just near the logo, everywhere. That's a nightmare for any defense. Because once Clark starts stretching the floor that far, everything else opens up. Defenders hesitate, rotations arrive late, passing lanes appear, and teammates start finding easier opportunities. That's exactly what happened. Every big Clark basket seemed to create another opportunity for someone else. A kick-out pass, a transition bucket, an open corner three. The Mercury defense slowly started cracking under the pressure. And once that happened, Indiana never really looked back. What's fascinating is how quickly momentum can change in sports. One quarter earlier, fans were wondering if Indiana was about to suffer one of its most embarrassing losses of the season. A quarter later, the same crowd was standing on its feet after nearly every possession. That's the effect a superstar can have. One player changes the mood of an entire arena. One player changes the confidence of an entire roster. One player changes the direction of an entire game. And that's exactly what Clark did. But there was another player who quietly became one of the heroes of the night, Sophie Cunningham. While Clark was carrying the offensive load, Cunningham was doing something equally important. She was setting a tone. Championship teams usually have at least one player willing to embrace uncomfortable moments. Someone who isn't worried about being popular. Someone who isn't afraid of confrontation. Someone willing to stand up when emotions start boiling over. For Indiana, Cunningham has increasingly become that player. The Fever already have stars. They already have scorers. They already have playmakers. What they needed was attitude. And that's exactly what Cunningham brought. Fans noticed it immediately. Every time tensions rose, she was involved. Every time opponents tried to push boundaries, she responded. Every time things started getting heated, she made sure Indiana wasn't backing down. That's the kind of presence that doesn't always show up in a box score. But teammates notice it. Coaches notice it. Opponents definitely notice it. And on this night, the entire league noticed it. Meanwhile, the Mercury found themselves dealing with a problem they didn't expect. The crowd. As the game became more emotional, the energy inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse became overwhelming. Every call against Indiana generated noise. Every Clark basket generated noise. Every Phoenix mistake generated noise. By the fourth quarter, the arena felt completely tilted in Indiana's favor. Players often talk about home court advantage. This was home court advantage at full volume. The fans weren't simply watching the game. They were participating in it. Every possession felt louder than the last. And when Phoenix started missing key free throws late in the game, the reaction was immediate. The building erupted, not because the points mattered so much, but because those misses felt symbolic. For Fever fans, it felt like the basketball gods finally balancing things out. Fair or unfair, that's how many people inside the arena saw it. And the louder the crowd became, the more confident Indiana looked. By that point, the Mercury seemed exhausted, not physically, emotionally. They had spent so much energy battling, arguing, and reacting that they struggled to regain control of the game itself. That's something that happens more often than fans realize.